Current Mideast war in context with biblical prophecy, a war game scenario. Oh dear. Hello, this is ChartGPT today. You know, we got a lot of the wars and rumors of war all around the world, both in Ukraine, Mideast, and even in South America. So people are kind of wondering what's going on here. It's almost people thinking the end of the world, and it almost is biblical. Of course, you might think, well, that's just the Bible. But, you know, a lot of people think it's the end of the world. Here's a brief article from Mark Zuckerberg building a top-secret Hawaiian compound with I think it's $250 million with tunnels and all kinds of barricades and things that are, you know, like a fallout shelter. So he's not the only one. There's a lot of people buying these fallout shelters. Everybody's waiting for the end of the world. So, I mean, you do have to get a little bit biblical here. So let's get into a little bit here. Here's kind of a chart. Now, this is kind of the one we made up here. If you look up tribulation, you can get, there's over 100 different charts. They're about 80% alike. And so this is kind of what we put together. This highlights basically the 4,000 years prior to Christ's birth and 2,000 years after Christ's birth. The pre-Christ was the Old Testament and working with when God worked with Israel. Some people don't believe in the pre-Adamic era. It's old earth, new earth creationism, I suppose. Some people believe the war with God and Satan was 66 million years ago when the dinosaurs were destroyed. Anyway, getting closer to today, the transition from the Israelite nation to the church areas, there were 7 of them. And of course, this all boils back to Abraham's promise, who the identity of Israel, the lost 10 tribes, are, because they received the birthright, and they were supposed to receive the riches and inheritances towards the end time. So that's a key thing. We did a video on that earlier. You'll have to look on our website for that. But it was key on the dream of Nebuchadnezzar, and basically laying out the history of man, what they call sometimes the time of the Gentiles. The gold head was himself, Nebuchadnezzar, which was the gold. The Medo-Persian Empire was the silver, the Greek was the brass, and the Rome was iron. And then the 10 toes were supposed to be the beast power under the Antichrist towards the end time and the tribulation. So that's kind of a key element. A lot of people, this is fairly common knowledge with people that study the Bible and prophecy. But we want to focus on this 7-year tribulation. We're not in that tribulation yet. I think most people would agree with that. But some people believe we're close. So we're going to focus on that and look at what pre-tribulation is and do a little war game scenario. Because a lot of people feel like the current war between Hamas and Israel and the rumor of a wider regional war could be the prelude to going into this tribulational period. First off, let's take a look at the regional map. We have the king of the south, which is considered the Islamic countries, the king of the north, which is Russia, Gog and Magog, which is also part of Western Asian countries, which can include China. Then remember, we have the 10 toes of the Nebuchadnezzar's dream, which is the end-time beast power, the 10 nations. That's in Central Europe. And then we have the axis of Israel, which is in the Judean Jews in Israel, and then in the UK and the United States. We saw that in the latest UN vote, where the UK, US, and Israel vote together as a bloc. Then we get into where we're at today. Obviously, we have the Israeli Hamas war as it continues unabated. Nobody's going to stop Israel. Currently, about 25,000 that have been killed. They're probably looking to go as high as 50 to 100,000 deaths, inflaming the Islamic world. Stories of horrific violence and claims of ethnic cleansing and genocide. Of course, that's already happening. The current leaders will do nothing, especially Islamic leaders. They're too well suited in their positions. They're quite happy. They don't want to go to war. However, the people in the street are angered, and a few of these leaders will become toppled. And of course, at that point in time, we have new radical Islamic leaders to begin to build a regional conflict that will be quite devastating. So what happens at that point? Israeli-Hamas war grows. Iran and Hezbollah launch a special surprise attack. Perhaps a couple carrier groups go down with their missiles. They attack the U.S., making the Israeli-Hamas war almost secondary. We also have Hezbollah overtaking the northern part of Israel, and with their 80 to 100,000 troops, and they probably could seize a third of Israel at the top. Israel, fearing their very existence, will start using their unthinkable Samson nukes against Iran and take out key targets in Iran. And at that point, there's a counterattack, whereas perhaps even Iran will start attacking some areas of the EU and using different mechanisms such as 911 suitcase bombs or something to the UK and US, which are the primary supporters of Israel, as we're all in a major regional attack. At this point, the Western world is in full attack, and the alliances begin to break down, and the King of the North begins to see that their positions are threatened as well, so they will enter into the war. US and UK become feckless in this whole situation because they're too focused on their internal struggles, racism, civil war, political infighting, unable to do nothing on the geopolitical stage. As well as a new Antichrist figure emerges out of a wounded EU, and all this fighting, guess what? The Dome of the Rock gets destroyed. So going on from there, the modern world is in turmoil. Israel's existence is in peril. This charismatic leader in the EU will begin to work a deal between the parties. This charismatic leader will try to join the religions of the world, Jews, Christians, and Muslims, turning Israel, because it wants to preserve its very existence, turning it into a multicultural, multi-religious state under the tutelage of the EU. As part of the deal, Israel is allowed to build the third temple on the Temple Mount, something that they've been wanting to do for millennia. Some people believe that the Antichrist will do certain miracles to get people to agree and to believe in his power, both military, religious, and political power. Begins to build a new global leadership under the new beast power. All this is a very small portion of the overall historical timeline of human existence according to biblical prophecy. Take our online poll. What is the likelihood we are living in biblical end times? And take a look at our AI, and it tells you a little bit about the concept of the rise of the beast power and entity before the tribulation. See what it has to say. Watch and beware. And don't forget to subscribe.